Hi there, I will be discussing my experience with the Read Aloud signature assignment for ITL 510. My name's Emily O'Brien, and I read to a virtual class of 6-year-olds. Um, and here's my Read Aloud rationale. So I read Pete the Cat in his white shoes to the group, and it felt appropriate to use for the 6-year-olds because there's a lot of color and wordplay involved, and that's something they're very familiar with, and so it's fun and exciting because they're able to easily interact and engage with the book. Um, and I showed my students each page to the screen, which is how they were able to see the pictures and interact and respond. But I also gave them digital access to the book, which they could read and flip through themselves afterwards. I didn't want them flipping through during, because then they wouldn't be watching me and interacting with the other students and I. So, what aspects of UDL was I able to incorporate? I used the UDL aspect of engagement, um, which I used the three different levels of it, which were including interest, and I did that through doing a picture walk before I read the whole book, and this helps students kind of see what the book's going to be about. That way, when we're reading through it, they can focus more on what's going on in the story rather than things that are visually appealing to them, because we'll have already gone through and talked about it. The second thing under engagement was requiring self-regulation, and I did that by expecting the students to stay seated and focused during the reading. And I guess I only used two under the engagement UDL. So this group was really awesome. I did not even have to enforce the self-regulation. They were all very self-regulated, and I didn't have to remind them to focus or be respectful. I think because I was a new face, they were on their best behavior. And how did I engage in the different learners in my group? I allowed for pauses in my reading, and that allowed for different students to contribute. Specifically to the story, they were able to contribute to the different colors they saw on Pete's shoes. That's one of the examples, because he was stepping in different things, so his shoes were changing different colors. And students are familiar with things like strawberries, blueberries, and mud, which is the three things he stepped in. Excuse me. And also there was a similar song, and I used a rhythmic speech pattern, so that for example, when he stepped in the strawberries, they knew his shoes would turn red, and so it repeated the same song but just used red instead of white shoes, and then used blue instead of red shoes. And so they were familiar with that and were able to sing along. And the academic learning, I didn't use a whole lot of academic learning language in this. Again, it was a new group for me, but I did use, obviously, the different vocab of white, red, blue, and brown. I could have used more language if I pointed out the random aspects of the book, like the red car, the barn, the tractor, and the bird. I pointed out a couple of those things during the picture walk, but they weren't expected to recite those back to me. So in the future, I could do more pointing in the book, expecting a reaction of speech from the students. And the questions I asked the students were given by the book, so I didn't have questions already prepared, but in the book there were different various questions, and more of pauses and expectation for them to respond. One of the things that I thought was a level of taxonomy that is above their current level was an example of SEL learning, and that was asking if Pete cried about his shoes changing colors. Did it upset Pete that his shoes turned red because he stepped in the strawberries? And the students could say yes or no and kind of evaluate maybe how they would feel if that happened to their white shoes. And like I said, I did not come with a preset group of questions. I was a little bit nervous about this being my first time reading aloud to a group of students ever, actually. But I did do the picture walk so that students would have a chance to get familiar with the book. Like I said, the students were very well behaved. I did not have to worry about handling them or repeating myself or demanding attention from them, which was awesome. Another perk of being a new person, I think, a new face. And because this was not my class, I wasn't really familiar with the students' needs, such as English learners, social emotional learners, and students with special needs. So for next time, I would be sure to include more of those supports in the reading and engagement by giving those specific students extra opportunity and time to respond. That way they could feel more engaged in what we're doing. I think it would be hard to do that just being a pop-in person, but obviously with students of my own, I would be able to more accurately and adequately implement that. And I would say my strengths were that I am a fluent reader and I enjoy reading books to kids. I think it's so fun, and I love that, especially in an in-person setting, there's no technology involved. It's just you, the students, in a book, and I just think kids are motivated by books and that attention that they get from engaging in books, and it's very positive. However, I think my weakness is that I was a little bit nervous during the reading because I didn't know the kids, and this was my first time reading to a large group of kids. I typically just read to the couple of kids that I nanny for, and I really think this is something that I'll grow in over time just through practice and experience. And in order to improve my next read aloud, I hope to have a better background knowledge on each student to improve student engagement and to give me better direction for differentiated learning for students that, for all students, but especially students that need specific supports. Like I said, this might not happen adequately until I have a class of my own and have all of their background info and learning info. And I think what I learned about myself as a future teacher is that I need to work on my confidence in front of the class. And I believe that will come with time, practice, and experience, and also just the familiarity of having a class of my own. And yeah, that's about it. But overall, it went really well, and I enjoyed this assignment. I just love hanging out with kids, and I think books are really encouraging and, like I said, a positive interaction, and should be implemented more. So yeah, thanks for listening.